What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to T3G. This is App Spotlight. My name is Dalibor. Today, we're taking a bit of a deep dive into VirtualBox VM coming up. Alright, now we've got the OS downloaded. That's Elementary OS 5.0. That comes from elementary.io. We're also downloading the latest version of VirtualBox. That is from virtualbox.org. And this is all free stuff, right? Elementary OS is something I found a few years ago. It's a great Linux distro. It feels a little Mac OS-ish. It's clean, it's lean. I just really like playing with it. Alright, so you jump through all the install hoops. We're going to let this install, and we'll get going. Alright, so once you're done, you have the option of just opening up right away. I'm going to just put this back into where it was. It does remove the old version if you have an older version before it installs the new one. So here it is. They've upgraded the interface a little bit. It's a little bit cleaner, a little bit prettier. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're just going to hit new. And we're going to go ahead and pick elementary. Where are we going to put the folder? We're going to put it, you know what, yeah, that's fine. We'll just leave it in the user folder on the SSD. That'll make things the fastest. We're going to go Linux. Version, we're going to go ahead and pick other Linux. We're going to go 32-bit because I'm pretty sure it's a 32-bit system. Memory size. Now I've got a good amount of memory to work with, so I'm going to give it 8. Give it 8 gigs to work with. And then you get to choose what file type. I've always gone with VDI. I've found no difference. I've played with the other two as well. It's made no difference for me, so I'm just going to stick with VDI. I'm going to not have dynamically allocated. That can get you in trouble because that'll change. If you start adding stuff, it'll actually move and make it bigger, which will take up space on your system. So I'm going to go ahead and just make we'll make I don't know, what am I thinking? 20 gigs. I mean, 20 gigs is plenty. Well, 20 gigs is plenty. We don't need that much space. It's going to take a little bit to create the system and the rules. So what it's basically doing is it's creating a hard drive on the system to give you all the necessary things that a normal hard drive and normal formatting, all that stuff that a physical hard drive would give you. Alright, so there it is. Now with VirtualBox, you can have multiple OSs installed. If you have, obviously if you're a developer, you probably know this stuff, but if you are getting into development, for instance, if you want to test on Mac OS, you want to test on different versions of Linux, you can have multiple installations and you can start them and stop them as needed. So that's kind of nice if you're building games, you want to test them on different systems. This is a good way to do it. So it tells you exactly what everything you have here as far as what network adapters, USB. You can give it access to your CD drive, you can give it access to whatever you want. So right now we don't need any of that stuff. We are going to... Now under the settings, you can also change a few things. So for instance, under system, you can actually give it more CPU. You know, I've got an 8-core CPU. I'll give it dual core just to give us a little bit invalid settings. What is the invalid settings? IO APIC features not enabled in your motherboard section of the system page. That's fine, we can get there. Okay, we'll do that. And that's input, output. That's if you plug in a flash drive, plug in external devices, it'll read it. I'll give it dual core, acceleration, that's all fine. Video memory, yeah, we'll give it 128 megabytes of video memory for sure. That's considerably less than I have, so that'll be just fine. But this is what I mean by it will let you test in specific environments, right? And figuring out that you can run on less capable systems than you think you can, your game might be accessible to more people, and that could equal more revenue. Now, before starting up, we are going to choose a specific ISO file, right? So we're going to go under our storage in the CD. Now, it says it's empty because there's nothing in the disk drive, but we're going to go ahead and choose a virtual disk file. We're going to navigate to where it is, and then you'll see that it says right here, Elementary OS, so it'll say exactly what is in the disk drive, and we'll hit OK. Now, when we start, it'll choose from that. It'll start up from that disk drive, and then we'll be able to install it to the hard drive. Alright, so it's going to go ahead and load. I did have to change one thing. I didn't record it because it took a long time, but I did have to change the actual type of OS. So instead of other 32, I went to with other 64, which changed the processor type and the chipset type on the computer that we're installing on. Let's go ahead and, can I hit F11 for this? I cannot. All right, so there it is. We're gonna go ahead and just install real quick. Shouldn't take too long with everything being SSD. 100% install everything. Erase and install. That's fine. Now see, some of this stuff, it might look like scary. There's a lot of information. This is just more detailed information about the type of hard drive that you're creating. So type of file system, that's all sort of default setting stuff. So you just go ahead and do the thing, and we're gonna go ahead and create, who am I? I am Dalibor. Not that kind of Dalibor. Pick a username, that's fine. Password, who knows? I hate when I type something and I type it the wrong way. Just fair. I like to think that my password is really good. Just fair, it said. See, super quick. We'll restart. There we go. Pretty quick, pretty simple. Let's go ahead and get our display resolution up. Whew, 8x600. That's rough. It's been a long time since that was acceptable. 1920 by... Really? Okay. I guess 16.8. Okay. Sure. There it is. Alright. Much better. Much better. Alright, so now we've got it at a decent resolution. It's not horrible. The background's pretty nice. But this is what I'm talking about. This is now an entirely separate system. I can play around with different software. I can play around with different games. Whatever I want to try out, I'm ready to go with this system. We're going to go ahead and run these updates. It's been a while since I've done this, so let's see. They've got an app center now. Yeah, they've updated a lot of things in this OS, so I'm excited to play around with it. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about VirtualBox. That's how easy it was to create a new OS, right? You have the option to create multiple installations. You have the option to use multiple different operating systems. So let's say you even have Windows 10, but there's just that one piece of software that required Windows 7. With this, you can create that XP or Windows 7 or even Windows Vista, if you really must, installation, and then you'll be able to just use it as normal. It's a fully functioning system. You can give it whatever resources you have available, whatever resources you can dole out. So for instance, I've got 32 gigs. I've got a pretty significant amount of resources, so I can give this a regular computer amount of stuff, and I can still use this while doing other things. Whereas if I, let's say, had a out-of-the-box computer with only 8 gigs of RAM, I can say, hey, I'm only going to give this system 2 gigs so that I don't have to lose any system performance, and I can still use this and do other things. So you'll have the option to transfer files back and forth. So if you need something from Windows 7 and you need to work in a software that's in Windows 7, you'll be able to transfer those files directly to your main system and be able to email them or whatever you need to do. Additionally, the virtualbox.org site has a ton of information about what you can do. End user docs is everything for the users themselves. You've got your user manual online with a ton of information, just a ridiculous amount of information. You can use this on a very simple level, you can use it on a very basic level, but you can also get ridiculously intricate with it and do a lot of good, cool stuff with it. So I wanted to show this off. I really needed the time to be able to install it, so that's kind of been the biggest step for me that's been holding me back, but that's why it took so long. We've got that now under our belt. I'm gonna play around with this elementary OS update. There we go. We're gonna update all my fair password. We'll play around with this later, and maybe the next thing we talk about will be elementary OS. Would that be considered an app? Maybe we'll do that on a tech video and kind of go into a little bit more detail about the OS itself. That's gonna be it for this one. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.